this evening is the status of shark consciousness. And I'm going to go back to the 1940s because really I was into that then. It's hard to believe. And then how I became interested, and this is all Trumpian, it's I, it's me, it's I, how I became interested in the sea and sharks. And then my education at Emory University, and then how I happened to get transformed through a little too close up with a giant hammerhead shark. And then my 3 pathways at the start of graduate school. And I hope that won't put you to sleep too much, but let's just see what happens. Let's see if I can go forward on this. Yes, okay. So, I'm going to talk about what we call the war on ignorance, what I call the war on ignorance. And this war, for my research career, actually had 3 phases. You don't do that to me. Phase 1 was my graduate research, and I'll talk about the creativity of the 60s and my vision research, and I'll speak about the importance of a mentor. I just want to mention Dr. Arthur Merberg. Many of you know him. He was my father, doctor. I think of him every day. He's been gone for 10 years. I can hardly believe it. But that's Dr. Merberg. And he got me a position at the Max Planck Institute in Germany with the Nobel Prize winner Konrad Lorenz, and working with Walter Heiligenberg. Then I had a kind of a midlife crisis, and then I went on to research. And phase 2 was this 15-year project I did in laboratory and field. Phase 1 was strictly laboratory. Every day a black laboratory, getting shocked with seawater and things. But anyway, phase 2 was more fun, as you'll see. And then the final chapter, I hate to call it the final chapter, but anyway, it was the final chapter establishing the Shark Lab. And you can see there are certain benefits here of being a director of a Shark Lab. Okay, all right. Okay, so for a little bit I'm going to talk about the myths of sharks and shark that have been going around since, I don't know, the 1500s. A lot of mythology going on here. So, what is a shark? A shark is a big, ocean-roving, primitive, stupid, indestructible, infinitely abundant fish. It's a cowardly eating machine that wants to kill you. It's the ultimate death fish from hell. Well, wait a minute, what about this mature, adult dwarf lantern shark? That's going to kill me? No, I don't think so. I might have that for a breakfast or something. The point is, there is no shark. There are 400 plus different kinds of sharks. And I'd like to show you some of the mythology that has arisen about them. Okay, so what are we looking at here? We're looking at thousands and thousands of sharks that are being killed, swept from the sea, and their important role as the top of the marine ecosystem in some ecosystems, and the bottom in some other plankton-eating sharks. So, shark fin, stop that. No, don't do it. There we are. Shark fin soup is an aphrodisiac. Well, I've tried shark fin soup, and I don't think it did much for me. So I'm against shark fin soup. White sharks bump boats to knock people into the water and eat them. Now, I've seen a picture of that in National Geographic where a white shark bumped this boat. Somebody supposedly fell off and got eaten. I mean, did we ever think of another reason for a white shark to bump a boat? I can only tell you 2 quick stories. Oh my God, I'm going to go over this so long. But I have to tell these stories. Everybody knows the bull shark. They know that it has 300 nanograms of testosterone per cubic centimeter in its blood, highest level of testosterone in the animal kingdom, supposedly, I think. Anyway, we measured it, we found it, and we also found something else about these buggers, that we follow them when we see them in Bimini, crystal clear water, And when they get tired of us following them, they'll turn around and attack that boat. I mean, seriously bite the propeller. And that's why I say, why do we think a white shark is going to swim up to a boat and knock a person out? Now, tigers in the Sundar in India will do that. They'll swim up to those boats and they'll grab people out of it. But white sharks, or any shark, really doesn't want to go and knock you out of the boat and have you for lunch. So, a fit human body could probably outswim a white shark. Yeah, if it's mounted on the wall, you could probably. Are you kidding? We had a television program which we're terribly embarrassed about last year, where they had a CG white shark swimming against one of our Bimini people. That's the way you could beat a white shark. CG or on the wall. Not that way. Forget it. Don't even think about it. Okay, now if I can keep my act together. Yes. So what did I want to say about that? So what do we see here? We see a human on a surfboard. And that human the shark looks at, now we know how sharks think, right? Because we're connected to them. And we think that the shark thinks that that human on the surfboard looks like a pinniped, looks like a seal. Yeah, well, no. I'll tell you why. They do have good vision. They do have color vision. They do like to attack seals. They do like to ambush them. But you don't need arms and legs to ambush this surfboard. They will bite a surfboard without arms and legs. So maybe you think that a surfboard looks like a seal. I mean, it looks like a seal. It doesn't look like a seal. Yet a white shark, looking up at that, makes a decision and says, that's something I'm going to get. Not because I look like a seal, but it looks like something that might work. And so they'll bite those things. You know, big bites out of the surfboard, and if a person's on, that's big bites out of the surfboard and the person's side. So that does happen, but I wouldn't say, when I asked the white shark about this the other day, he said, no, I don't think they look like, I just thought they might be interesting. And of course, all sharks have to keep swimming to survive. Well, if that were true, I wouldn't be standing here today, because the lemon shark, my dear, like a family member, the lemon shark can rest on the bottom, no problem, and that's how I got to teach them, train them like Pavlov did the dogs. I'll talk about that in a minute. So no, that's not true. And of course, shark attacks only occur in warm water. What's the matter with that? People only swim in warm water. They don't care to swim in freezing water. But even that's not true, because we know that white sharks have attacked people in California and up in Oregon, where the water is pretty cold. And so none of that's true. But it's partially true. I mean, white sharks do bite people from time to time. Coconuts fall on your head more. But never mind that. Let's go on from there. What do I have next? Okay. Okay. That's me trying to feed a lemon to a lemon shark. I wouldn't have it. So remember, this is like on the 50s. Most of you have heard of Yum Yum Yellow. Yum Yum Yellow means that sharks are attracted to international orange, and Yum Yum Yellow sounded pretty cool. Yum Yum Yellow. So that kind of got in the literature for a while. Well, we did some direct tests on that, and we didn't. What we found, I mean, I'm not going to get into details, but what we found was that any bright, contrasty object that we put in the water, no matter what its color, would elicit a so-called attack. Actually, it was food under a number of targets, but never mind that. Yum Yum Yellow is probably not right, but bright, contrasty colors is right. And all sharks are dangerous flesh eaters. Well, think about that little tiny dwarf shark. That doesn't seem dangerous. And also think about the biggest shark in the world. plankton eater, not a dangerous flesh eater. And think about the little horn shark. The little horn looks like a little piggy. That is a feeder on sea urchins. That's why sometimes its little spines get purple. Going into too many details here. A few shark species actually hunt humans. Negative. We all know the story of the rogue shark. Well, anyway, I'm assuming you know. And the rogue shark was a theory put forward by Dr. Victor Copleston in the 50s that stated once a shark tastes human flesh, thereafter, like, Pui is right, humans are not very fatty. They're not very fatty animals to begin with, but never mind that. But the point is that he suggested the rogue shark theory. We know that this is not the case, and many scientists have dropped it, and I agree with them. I don't have any evidence that a shark will attack and attack and attack, except for the one case in Matawan, the so-called great white shark in Matawan, New Jersey. You had a point to make? You got attacked?
I grew up on Matawan.
Oh, you didn't get attacked in Matawan. You grew up there. Okay, fine. I see. Well, you know this story probably better than I do, but I'm going off on a tangent. I better get back to my lecture.
I haven't heard this story.
Oh, you haven't heard the story?
I'll tell you later.
All right, you asked for it. Well, did you see Jaws? Yeah. You know how mean Jaws was?
Yeah.
Held a grudge? Sharks don't hold grudges. No. They eat things. You know, they're careful. Good sensory systems. Well, in 1916, have I got that right? You have to help me out now. In 1916, there was a shark attack in Matawan Creek. Now, Matawan Creek, help me out, is a tidal creek, but it's part freshwater and part saltwater. There's, in the high tide, a saltwater wedge goes in, and then the freshwater comes out. And the great ichthyologist of the time said, well, that was a great white shark. And Congress immediately passed a rule against great white sharks, but I'm getting ahead of myself. What happened, and this is extraordinary, what happened is not one person, I think it was a young boy that got killed, not one person, but they went in, they started blasting with dynamites in there to want to catch the shark, and 2 other people were killed by a shark. Now that sounds like a real rogue to me. The problem is that was no white shark. White sharks don't go into freshwater, but there is a bad actor that does, and that's Mr. Bull Shark. Yeah, let me introduce you to Mr. Bull Shark a little later. And we just got finished doing an incredible video. Oh, I'm going off. Never mind. I'll tell you about that later.
We'll say 10 o'clock.
You're going to have to stop me at about midnight.
I do
Okay.
have one question for you about this.
Yes, please.
Part of the story has to do with the idea that the sharks were being driven inshore by German U-boats. So is that
Well, I have something to say about that, too. I have something to say about that. You may remember around 2001, 2002, the year of the shark. You may remember that when there was some shark attacks up in the Panhandle, where a couple of people killed, and one kid, the guy grabbed the shark and pulled the kid's arm out of the shark. It was bitten off, and it was a bull shark, it was bitten off, and sewed it back on, and that worked. He got his arm back. Well, the story came out that Fidel Castro was training sharks in America. And in 2010, I was invited to go to Europe because some Russians had been killed in Al-Gadarka down in the Sinai, down there in Egypt, had been killed, and they saw the shark and this and that and the other thing. And then it turned out that the that the Israelis were training the sharks to go get the Russians. So I don't doubt that it was that these people said that the Matawan shark, the German U-boats. I better go on.
That would be called now a fake story.
Ah, fake news. Ah, I told you we were in the Trump era. Fake news.
All I want is a shark with a freaking laser beam.
Oh, we got that too. I'll tell you all about that. Okay, here we go. I warn you not to ask me any more questions. We'll be here till tomorrow.
It's okay.
All right, so here. What the heck? That's not the right one, is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right, that's right. Okay, so we talked about the rogue shark. Shark fins have magical or medicinal qualities. Not today. Nothing wrong. They have a little protein. Actually, they don't have any nutritional value. Yet we are destroying this entire class of vertebrate animals for the fins. Yeah, go ahead. Sharks are evil, like wolves and rats and spiders and snakes, and I don't like spiders and snakes. And they are not evil. They are not evil. They are none of those things. They are just animals that are highly evolved and that have a certain role in the environment. We could be evil, maybe, but I don't think, unless you found one that looked like that. Now, when you see that guy's evil. Okay. All right, so, okay, now, finally, we come to the cancer story. And those of you who have cancer and are alive today because you paid attention to what your medical doctor said, you made the right choice for not killing sharks and eating their cartilage, because you will get a little protein, but you won't get cured of cancer. And here is the poor old great white shark with a cancer on its jaws. Sharks get cancer. Every animal that there is probably gets cancer because that's part of their genome, and they have cancer genes just like you and me. Sharks must turn over to bite. Oh, how silly that is. What a waste of time. Why would they do that? The vast majority of sharks that are fish eaters, they just swim over and gulp the fish, and when you look at their stomach contents, you get a whole fish back. And of course, sharks stopped evolving millions of years ago. Yeah, well, you all know the tarpon. You all know what a tarpon is. A great game fish, a fantastic, silver king they call it. Well, there were tarpons swimming in the ocean that looked like tarpons. They were bigger, they looked like tarpons, but there were no hammerhead sharks. They had not been evolved yet. So everything is evolving. That's the nature of the way it works. You can believe that or not, but that's what I think. And nothing stopped evolving millions of years ago. The thing is that the sharks hit upon very good designs millions of years ago, hundreds of millions of years ago, and they have kept them. But during many extinction periods, they were practically wiped out, and then they had to start all over again, and wiped out and start all over again. Okay, on and on we go. Okay, and this, of course, we understand. That's little Stevie, and that's Bruce. And sharks are eating machines that only breed and feed. Well, I spent many, many decades studying the behavior of sharks, and I can tell you that they do a heck of a lot more than feed and breed. Even their courtship and reproduction is like a ballet, if any of you have ever seen how that works. Of course, they are gangbangers, there's no doubt about that, but that's the way they work, that's the way they work. And sharks are primitive vertebrates because they evolved early on. Probably some people, I also believe that they were the first jawed fishes to arise after the Ordovician period, about 500 million years ago. And so they are very early in evolution as a vertebrate animal. But they're as modern as Millie. I mean, they're a modern day Millie as soon as you can imagine. They are today's shark, every one of them. They may be like the lemon shark, who I love dearly. That split off from its ancestor about 7 million years ago, and about 3 million years ago, it completely divided from what we call the sickle-fin lemon shark and the regular lemon shark we find in the Atlantic. So maybe they're 5, 6 million years old. We're very young. We're only 100,000 or maybe 200,000 years old. But they are certainly not primitive. When you look at their large brain, you can see that, but I don't want. Sharks are stupid. Ha, 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 ha. Sharks are not stupid. I spent years in a black laboratory getting electric shocks from all the seawater, as I mentioned, trying to study how sharks learn. And everybody probably knows the story of Pavlov and his dogs. You know, you ring the bell, the dog salivates, that whole bit. Well, I found that on the same conditioned reflex task, a lemon shark could learn 10 times faster than a cat or a rabbit on the same so-called nictitating membrane response, in which, I don't want to go into details, but they're not stupid. They learn fast. I could teach them to run mazes and everything else, and I did. We did. We did, honestly. Okay, let me get on here. Let me just go on a little further. Okay.
Oh, boy.
Megalodon lives. Yeah, Megalodon lives, right? Well, unfortunately, Megalodon doesn't live because the whales that it fed on, they became extinct. Most of there were, at one time, perhaps about 300,000 years ago, not that long ago, there were Megalodons. There might have been humans, or at least hominids, who could actually see one, but the whales became extinct. There became very few species of them, and Megalodon died out. There are no Megalodons. Sharks are repulsive to humans. Normal people hate them. I mean, that's what they said, and I would say in 1950 that was true. And nobody knew anything about them, and all we knew is they ate people. They want you for breakfast. They don't want to know anything. But now we know a lot better. So these are really some kind of myths. I'm taking too long. Well, okay, some people love sharks. The Aumakua, the Hawaiians, and the Polynesians, they really think of sharks as their ancestors and protectors. And if you see dolphins in the water, there aren't any sharks around. I have many videos of sharks and dolphins feeding together behind shrimp boats that throw the so-called trash fish over the side. Sharks and dolphins right in there. Sharks are cowardly scavengers eating carrion. Tell that to a great white shark that pops off a fur seal in South Africa. That ain't scavenging, not today. And chinless cowards. Well, William Beebe was a great. Let me get this thing. I'll probably change slides. William Beebe was a great scientist, way ahead of his time in the 30s. Everybody probably in here has heard of Dr. Eugenie Clark. She passed away very recently. She was basically his secretary because he wouldn't let her go down in the bell because, well, she's a girl, you know how that goes. Happily, that's all gone today, as we know from the tech type. Where's Mr. Tech Type? Yeah. There, as we know from the tech type, when we had women back in the 60s, I think it was. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Okay. I guess I'm giving my political manifesto here, but anyway. I'm trying to change this. Okay, here we go. I want to show you some things. Now, in the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1950s, there were no films of sharks. We didn't know anything about sharks. There were hardly any pictures. But along came Hans Haas. And unfortunately, Hans, can I see the hands of anybody who's heard of Hans Haas? Okay, quite a few people know his story. Unfortunately, he came along during World War II. He was a German. That makes him a Nazi. Let's kill him. But in fact, he was a great pioneer. And he out-pioneered Cousteau by decades and did things that nobody did, nobody even knew about. And wrote wonderful books of Men and Sharks and In the Kingdom of Thousand Atolls, wonderful books. I did get to meet him when I did my postdoc in Germany, and it was so funny because, well, this is a side story, I better get on with it. And this was his Draeger rebreather that he developed in 1938. Now, if this will work, hold your breath. Hold your breath. Ah, it worked.
mayores pretensiones de Hans Haas fue el estudio del comportamiento de los tiburones, que eran aún para la fantasía de la época las horribles bestias que conocían a través de relatos de aventureros y navegantes. A partir de nuestro primer encuentro con tiburones en el Mar Caribe, en 1939, pudimos observar que incluso a los de mayor tamaño se puede poner en fuga si nos dirigimos hacia ellos sin mostrar temor. En 1942, en las aguas de las islas griegas, pudimos observar que los tiburones de allí tienen los sentidos auditivos embotados a causa de las explosiones de dinamita que los pescadores provocan para pescar. Los escualos cambian de actitud cuando hay sangre en el agua. Entonces pierden su cobardía e indecisión habituales y se muestran intranquilos. Sus movimientos son entonces nerviosos y mucho más rápidos.
So the next little film shows you how far we've come in those decades. We will see images of sharks that, as a graduate student, there was no single photograph of. There were some drawings made from dead specimens. Now, I just cannot imagine how far we've come. And I've seen the whole thing. It's just incredible to me. Let me see if this will work. Megamouth. Thresher shark actually hitting with its tail. Boom, it got one. Holy smoke. The old frill shark. Really an ancient-looking animal, but modern as today's. And the mako chasing after a piece of bait. And the cow shark or six-gill shark down at several hundred meters. And this is a shark, the salmon shark, up in Alaska. Nobody. And look at this guy, a goblin shark. Who could ever believe you could get a picture of one feeding? Unbelievable how they do this. And our old friend, Mr. White. Mr. White. Nothing really happened there. It was just a bunch. Okay. Now I go into my Trumpian, what you might call, I don't even know how to phrase it, but this is going to be me for you, and please indulge me. Okay, well, there we are. So, this is how I became oriented as a marine biologist to the ocean. When I was in '39, I lived in Miami Beach. When the war came along, we had to move out because soldiers came and occupied our house and so on. And we didn't move back until 1946. But in the interim, I got to visit this place, which was my church of God, honest to goodness. And I got to see William Beebe's original bathysphere. But my love was shell collecting, and this was the old shell room. And I really did this with these docents. As little kids, I could bike to the museum, and they would take us around and show us pictures. They called them, I think, dioramas or something like that. Is that right? Yeah. Dioramas. And wonderful, those were wonderful stuffed sharks and turtles and things, and they were alive to us. That was the real thing. But my love, the glory of the seas cone shell then was the rarest shell, and that's what completely mesmerized me. This one mollusk that I became a shell collector for years before I ever thought about sharks. So going on, we finally moved down to Miami Beach, and as I say, I did collect shells. Most of the guys were playing baseball and football. I was collecting shells, and I'd go down to the old Pier 5, which is now, what is it, Miami Bayside now. But then what happened? So, in 1958, we used to go out on this ex-Nazi boat called the Blue Goose, which was liberated by our troops. They say it was one of Hermann Goering's many yachts. But anyway, it was the Blue Goose. And for $7 on Friday, we could sail out of Government Cut, go out to Valley Rocks, and stay there until Sunday, spearfishing and eating the food that we speared, and then we would go back. And some of you real oldies but goodies may recognize this guy. He ran a dive shop called Tarpoon. Mike Kevorkian. Mike Kevorkian. I would go out with Mike all the time, and we did this day after day after day. And that's what I looked like with my spear gun and my tanks. They don't do that these days. I even caught a little turtle, I forgot the name of it. Abadi, that's all those. Hawksbill! Thank you very much. Hawksbill turtle. So, what happened was I was down there spearing fish, had a big grouper under a rock, and this submarine came. And this looked like it was 2,000 feet long, and I got under the reef with that grouper at that time. Just climbed right back up under the reef and thought I was going to die, because that's what you do with hammerheads, you die. And so I went back after this experience because I happened to love the subject of comparative anatomy, and in comparative anatomy, I don't know, this is kind of boring to you, but in comparative anatomy, we studied sharks. That was one of the 3 species we studied. And I had my great mentor, Dr. Julian Corrington. He'll come in a minute. But after that experience, I transferred from Emory University to the University of Miami, and changed from pre-med to marine biology. And the rest is kind of history. And here's one of Dr. Corrington's famous books. And as you can see, I asked Dr. Corrington, I said, do you think I could do something with sharks? And he said, oh yes, absolutely. I did a paper in the 30s, and I've written these books, and I think you could do it. So that made me transfer, and I said, I was like a pig in heaven once I got into this. I really liked it. And this is what comparative anatomy students look like. They dissected a shark. There's a shark. It's a male, Squalus acanthius. And yeah, that's what happened. So, I had 3 career choices to do. No, I'm not kidding, man. Here's the proof of it. So, this is my dad, and I said, Dad, I'm graduating here. Do you think I could be a ballet dancer? That's me right there. Do you think I should be a ballet dancer? No. He said, no. I said, well, I want to be a jet jockey. I said, I love airplanes. I love them. And I might add that I was pretty much not a nice boy in those days, as you can see. Anyway, he said, you get killed in those. You don't want to do that. I said, well, what about being a marine biologist? He said, oh, will you be a real doctor? I said, no, I'll be a marine biologist. He said, well, that's better than a ballet dancer or a jet jockey. So I didn't tell him I was going to study sharks. I left that part out. But I did indeed select it. My dad died too young. I would have loved him to see his grandchildren and things like that, but that's the way it goes. And so, finally, I got to enter, in 1960, I got to enter the graduate program, and in 61, I entered the then University of Miami Marine Lab, which has gone through several name changes since then. And you will no doubt remember the hippies and the time of upheaval, but in science there was just as much of an upheaval back then as, the flower children. I mean, it was incredible. And so this was in my my more egregious days. I would go to tournaments and rip out the eyes of sharks and collect them because I was doing a study on shark vision, and there was no way we were accepting. My boss, that's Warren Wisby, he said, don't accept the literature, go and find out for yourself. The literature said they were colorblind, they could hardly see. We didn't believe that. So for days and months and years, I cut the eyes on a microtome. I didn't mean to cut my own eye, but I cut the eyes on a microtome. And lo and behold, we found that in this example of a great white shark, they had many cone photoreceptors, which implies color vision. And I did brain studies, and this photograph, Jerry Greenberg will no doubt recognize because he took it, and that was a young doc. I don't look like that anymore, but that was a young doc studying a shark whose head is sticking out through a perspex globe onto an optical system, and I actually did train sharks and talk to them. And I asked them pretty simple questions. Do you see this light, or do you not see this light? Anyway, we'll go on.
Here, under the electron
Don't laugh.
microscope, we're obtaining the kinds of detailed information necessary to reveal the ultrastructure of the rods and cones in the great white shark retina. Dr. Hamasaki will now anesthetize the lemon shark. The corneal electrode attached to a contact lens. With this electrode, we pick up the electroretinogram generated each time a flash of light strikes the atom. In this experiment, we measure the sensitivity of lemon sharks to light of different colors. It shows at least two things. First, the limits of vision, and second, that the lemon shark retina, when tested in darkness, is most sensitive to green light. In this experiment, we
Look at that
condition...
watch. Whoa! Oh, what happened? Hello, come on,
Go back.
go back, go back,
Go back one more and
go
then
back,
go forward.
continue the woods.
Here, under the electron microscope,
Well, now you have to
the
go
kinds
through
of
this
detailed
boring
information
thing.
necessary to
Sorry.
reveal the ultrastructure of the rods and cones in the great white shark retina. Dr. Hamasaki will now anesthetize the lemon shark.
That's curare or
Corneal
nemutol.
electrode attached to a contact lens. With this electrode, we pick up the electroretinogram generated each time a flash of light strikes the atom. In this experiment, we measure the sensitivity of lemon sharks to light of different colors. It shows at least two things. First, the limits of vision, and second, that the lemon shark retina, when tested in darkness, is most sensitive to green light. In this experiment, we condition a fully conscious shark to blink each time it sees a flash of light.
Yeah, that's it. Mind you, that's the 1960s. That was some pretty cutting edge stuff back then. And I must say that I was very, very lucky to meet and work with these guys at the Baskin Palmer Eye Institute. I'm still friends with Dr. Hamasaki, very close friends. Okay, so let me go ahead. And I'm not going to go over all these details, but here we see an obvious cone. You can tell because the nucleus of the cone cell is up above this external limiting membrane. These are all rod cell nuclei. These are ganglion. These go down to the ganglion cells. That's all funny stuff, but we did do a complete job on the lemon shark. Anatomy, biochemistry on the visual pigments, electrophysiology that I just showed you, psychophysics, training these sharks in two different ways, and the conclusion is that sharks have a functionally and anatomically duplex retina, and they can see colors to a limited extent. They are sort of like red-green colorblind, but they definitely can detect wavelength differences. Okay, so midlife crisis. Well, well, I had been studying the shark from 1961 to 1976 in this black laboratory. The way I saw the shark was as a big, huge eye with some fins on it. That wasn't what I got in the game for. What I got in the game for was to study sharks, not eyes. And so I had this one midlife crisis. I didn't buy a Porsche until about 5 years ago, so that's my second midlife crisis. But I did take a scientific jump off a cliff. I proposed to the National Science Foundation to do a study of the bioenergetics of the lemon shark. Bioenergetics you all know about. Anybody who has ever counted calories and done a diet to lose weight, that's a bioenergetic study. You want to know what the animal takes in, what it loses in excretion, and how it grows. And you want to know if the animal is gaining weight or losing weight, how it's growing, and so on. But amazingly, I got this grant. I don't understand it. Does anybody here know who Walter Stark is? Yeah. Well, it was Walter Stark, the younger, Dr. Walter Stark, who's down in Australia now, who sat with me for a day and said, you can do this, and here's how I'm going to tell you you can do it. And he explained to me this whole deal about digestion, about all these things. And by God, they gave it to me, and it lasted for 10 years. And I'd still be getting an NSF grant if I didn't get bit by the cancer bug. But that's another story. Yeah, these are some of the studies. I don't want to go over details, but no, I don't want to go over details. You can look at this and you can see, oops, come back. You can see that we had a model that we were working on. That model could be for a gasoline engine, it could be for a farm, it could be for a plankton animal or any animal. That bioenergetic equation holds, and it's a simple equation. And we studied, here was our condominium, and that's Dr. Brad Weatherby, and he was collecting poop on the bottom of each one of those compartments to see how rich in energy it was. What a life. He'd stay up all night just to get poop. Poopy poop. A poopologist. I have to write him and tell him that. And here's the growth curve of a lemon shark. And anyway, you could find a mathematical equation. Here's an oxygen consumption. We call it a metabolic donut chamber. The shark swims around and we measure the oxygen. And this is our conclusion for the 1 kilogram lemon shark at 24 degrees centigrade, is that if you consider their consumption as 100% in one 24-hour period, they eat about 32 kilocalories of food. And of that 32 calories, 22.5% go to growth. This is a young shark. So about 7.5 kilocalories are grown. Metabolism takes about 50% of their intake, and they excrete about 28%. Poor old Brad, he found that. Yeah, okay, so that's the laboratory portion of the work that I did. That took years, and it was fun, and it was great, and it got me out of the dark room and playing with sharks. And these are some of the papers that came out of it, dissertations and abstracts. It's only a partial listing. And this was my first research cruise. Nowadays they have wonderful, this is all, you could read this story about how crazy this cruise was, but these guys here, I have in the Save Our Seas magazine of this month, there's an article called A Pirate of the Caribbean. And that there is the pirate that they're talking about. That's me, that's me. So I signed on with the Petra Maria, a boat that they stole from Castro, who stole it from them, and came to Miami to fish for sharks to get leather. This is shark fin belt. I shouldn't have this, but, well, I like it. and that's what they were fishing for. And I was doing some research and also collecting jaws. And, oh, sorry about that. I'll hold this. I was collecting jaws, as you can see. Our boat, that's our water, 55-gallon casks, and that's at Great Isaac's Rock, and one of our other pirates, that's at Great Isaac's, and there's our crew. Anyway, quite an interesting story, and that was my first research. Stand by one. That's my wife. I don't leave home without her, so just understand. I don't think I could stand this long without her. So these are our real ships that we worked on, and some of the toys. Dr. Spielman, oh, goodbye, come back. Sorry, it's very close together and my fingers are sort of not good anymore. So Dr. Spielman will recognize this. This is an ultralight aircraft. I put a shark on it. NSF bought it for me, and we had fun with it. But it didn't really get us very far, but we had a ball with it. And this is one of those hovercrafts. Someday Dr. Spielman will tell you the story about this thing. I'm not going to go into it, but mind you, this is an inflatable with an aircraft engine on the back, and when we would drive around on the flats, green flames would come out of this thing at night. And the first thing they said, "Did you bring that thing across the Gulf Stream?" No, I don't take a rubber boat across the Gulf Stream with an airplane engine, not today. But anyway, using this, we were able to track a shark in shallow and deep water for 7 full days. It really was quite extraordinary. That was back in the 80s. Yes, and my second midlife crisis. You might recognize an Apple II. An Apple II. That's what that was. Yeah. 700 kilobytes memory. That was big. And I've been Gruberized by myself. This is sort of what I look like after chemo. And what's that? Oh yeah, that's me right there. You can see that shining apparition. That's my bald head. My baldness came on and off like a jacket. I get chemo, whoop, it'd come off. Then it'd grow in really fantastic. There it's going in. Then whoop, it's come off again. So that's what I look like in the off season. But, however, along with taking some horrible toxic chemical poisons, really horrible, I used to have to, well, I'm getting off. I'll stay on point. I took this drug called prednisone. And does anybody know what prednisone is? It's a steroid.
It does everything, good and bad.
It does everything, good and bad, and it makes you, it says, frankly, chaotic episodes, frankly crazy episodes, psychotic episodes. I was prednisone monster. That's what my family called me, the PM, when I was under this. But, however, it also speeds you up to warp speed. And in the time when I was really suffering badly, I established the IUCN Shark Specialist Group. I established the American Elasberine Society. I became a trust member for 16 years on the Bahamas Trust. I got these grants and cruises between 78 and 89, and I established the Bimini Biological Field Station. And without prednisone, I'd probably still be on the dock fishing now. This is Trump, right? Am I doing Trump or what? He's funny, you know. If you get beyond all the stuff, he's a funny guy. At least he tries to be funny. Okay. I am attempting humor too, I might add. Okay, so established this 27 years, says 2015, which was when I gave that lecture in Portugal, which nobody could see. But this is what the, oh, hello. Hello. So this is what we were faced with. We actually built this onto an old drug house that they had there. This is, and this is after the hurricane. That was the only damage we got. And I became a plumber, and I became an electrician, and I became a motor fixer. And I liked this. Sometimes we flew around, but we didn't do very well every time. But I became like Dr. Spielman, almost. Not quite, but almost. He is a man of all seasons. I am a man of maybe Winter. Anyway, enough of that. Let's go on. Okay, so 25, now 27 years of research. I'm going to zoom through this because it has a lot of graphs and stuff. Okay, so this is the work of my doctoral, stop that. Of my doctoral students who, Dr. Guttridge, Dr. Feldheim, now Dr. Chapman, Dr. Franks, Dr. Newman, Dr. Kessel, and Dr. DiBattista. They all got their training at the Shark Lab. They all did their doctoral work there. And I'm very proud of them, and very proud that I could be a part, which is what my duty is now. My duty is to the next generation, and as long as I live, that will be my duty. But I do love the sharks too. I kiss them and things. So, so this is the
In that way, you're different than Trump.
which one?
He doesn't like sharks.
Who?
Trump.
Drunk, yeah.
Yes, yes. Our president doesn't like sharks, but I have to get up there and straighten him out. I want to give this lecture to him. Maybe he'll figure it out in a minute. But this is I have my wife here. This is my ocean wife right here, the lemon shark. I owe a lot to this animal. Just look at me today. I have a Porsche Speedster. Aha, not many people have that. I have a great house. I have a marine lab. I got a life. And it was all because of, and not to mention my wife. Well, I don't know if my wife was because, yes, my wife too, and my children, and my grandchildren, all because of this strange little creature, the lemon shark. Thank you. Okay, so, population dynamics. In our 25th year, we set nets in this place we call Sharkland, and this place we call the North Sound. These little lines are nets. We work them at night for 12 hours. We do 6 nights in the North Sound, 6 nights here. Here you see about 120 little lemon sharks in a pen. These guys are circling, and they're highly oriented to each other. It's an amazing photograph. Yeah, okay, so the reason we do this is for genetic studies. We are able now to identify, without ever seeing the mom and the dad of these babies, we can say who they are, and we can identify them. If we ever catch them again, we know that that mother gave birth to this baby, and we also know that if that baby comes back in 12 years and gives birth, that's the grandchild. We know all this. We have a pedigree with 4,000 sharks in it. The vast majority are dead because of natural mortality. But we know almost everything about this animal. It's just, and because we've been doing this for 25 years. Who would be nutty enough to do this for 25 years? I have no idea. But I have the Shark Lab, and they love it, and I love it. But 25 years. And this will give you some idea. This is from 2014, but by 2017 we had approximately 4,000 sharks tagged, and the red is Sharkland, and you see some kind of a mode there, but we don't really think that's statistically significant. They're there. There was one bad time when they did some dredging in here and poisoned the sharks, but after that it all came back again. Say again? Okay. So this will just show you what the deal is. At sunset, we set these little sharks. They soak for 12 hours. These little sharks get caught in the net. We walk this net every 15 minutes. We immediately remove the shark, put them in a tent, a little box, and work them up. And work them up means we put a little electronic tag in it, about the size of a rice grain, like you would scan it like in a grocery store. So if we ever catch that shark, we scan it again, we get it. We take a genetic sample, we take a blood sample, and we take a tissue sample, and we weigh and measure it. And that we did for 4,000 animals. And the genetics has come back. All right, let me go. Well, okay. So the result way back many years ago, because now we've come forward since about 2002, we've come forward to much newer work. But way back then, we reckoned that about 85 females and about 400 males use the nursery. Sounds a little weird, but you have to understand that females are homing. They come back year after year. Where males, they're nomadic. They don't come back. And the reason they don't is because the population is very small. If you had the same males coming back to the same 85 females, you would have sharks with 12 fins and 9 eyes and everything else. So you have to have a way to get diversity, genetic diversity. And as I say, the females are on a biennial cycle. Every 2 years they come back. 1 year they mate, then they go out, they get pregnant, they give birth, and then the next year they don't come, they come back, but, well, I'm getting this blue. So let me just go on because I know I'm over time, 10 minutes now. Listen, take my word for it. This was a very groundbreaking study where we found tremendous new information about how sharks work. And you can read that, so let's go on.
Sharks are coming in from deep. They're headed right into the shallows. They're here to give birth. But one scientist is consumed by an obsession with bringing them back.
I'm looking for the Bahama Bank there.
Well, I don't love all sharks. I love pretty much lemon sharks.
He stationed his researchers around the lagoon to intercept any females. As soon as they spot one, they move in. And that's when the lagoon becomes a maternity ward. And the doc gets called in as the midwife. His plan is to get hold of 2 or 3 precious shark pups from this mother and move them to a part of the mangrove where they will be safe and where he can study.
Come on, guys! Come on! Safe work! Babies are coming!
Like any maternity ward, things get crazy really quickly.
Got it by the tail.
Get ready! Jesus, you guys are so... Go!
Go in there with the shark. Right now?
Being around a 9-foot predator that's giving birth is a little dodgy.
Come on, guys! Here we go. Tip the tail is out. Baby's coming out now. Baby's coming out. Here it comes. Here it is. Here it is. Come on down, you guys! Damn it! Work it! Here comes another. They're sitting there with their fingers in their ears and not taking the charge. Right here. Right there. Okay. Oh, minutes.
After giving a helping hand,
Natural birth. Natural birth.
the doc lets the mother birth the remaining pups on her own.
Now, leg up. All right. Step away from the charge. Well, I could get out of control pretty easily when those babies are coming and they're standing there like this instead of going this. Well, anyway, I won't make too many excuses. You already know.
Do you keep your babies?
No, the babies we take a little genetic sample, we put that electronic tag in them, and we release them. We bring them to the spot where they should go. And we only did about 3 or 4 of them. She probably had 12. We just let her go for the rest of the natural birth. Yeah. Oh, wait, let me go
I
ahead.
just wanted to know if the female lemon shark gets in kind of a bad mood and she's giving birth. I mean,
No, it's just the opposite. It's just the opposite. But we can talk about that, but I really want to get through this. Poor people are sitting here hours and hours. Well, these are some of the things that we do. Okay, fine. I have a few videos that I want to show. They're more fun than this. But I want you to know that we have in our North Sound Lagoon, which I showed you a minute ago, 12 threatened or endangered species. And the blasted idiots are pulling the mangroves out faster than they can, and the mangroves are everything. They are the mother of all, even coral reefs. So many of our coral reef animals use the mangroves as nurseries. And it's just, well, I'm not fighting it anymore, but I fought it for many years. So, let's go.
The purpose of the Jupiter trip is to place transmitters on sharks because we really want to
really make this thing work. Yeah, that should do the job, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.